Hey, what's up guys? How's it going? I just wanted to go ahead and give you guys a brief tutorial over garrison trapping. Alright, so, first things first, garrison trapping. What is it, and how do I do it? Alright, so it's pretty straightforward. You need to have not one, but 2 accounts on Lord's Mobile. It's preferred that you are a PC player, meaning that you are using an Android emulator. Not to say you can't do this with 2 phones, or with 1 phone and using something called Nox App Plus, or something that clones the app, whatever it be. Essentially, you need to be able to access both accounts simultaneously, at least within a reasonable partial amount of the time. And what you're going to do is you're going to need to be able to essentially bring up. So in this case, I'll pull this up. We'll pull up the second account real quick. But while that is going on, I'm going to go ahead and briefly just explain this to you. So garrison traps are accounts that have been built to have a very high watchtower, as high as they can get them. Usually 21 is about right where I would say you could probably stop. But the best place would be obviously 23 or 25, but 23 or 21 you're fine. And then, of course, what else? Well, you probably, and this is my opinion, but I think you should probably go into the military tree and get this to 9. Or 10 if you've got an academy at level 24. Now, why exactly do you want your intelligence report to be 9 or 10? Well, essentially, the strategy for playing a garrison trap is that you are going to take your main account and reinforce the garrison trap. The garrison trap, on the other hand, is serving an entirely different purpose. What it's doing is it's going around scouting players regardless of where. It doesn't really matter where. If you want to have an easy way to really irritate people, just go around scouting. And well, funny thing is that with those scout reports, you will not only know what the troops they have, but you may end up actually finding some zeroable players. And what infuriates players the most in this game? Going out on World Chat and posting their chords. And frankly, it wouldn't take a whole lot when you say, can be zeroable, post chords. Or has 15 million resources, post chords. Anything along that line will often get someone hit. And people are not very happy about that kind of thing. Never have been, never will. But you can take advantage of this as a garrison trap. So, what you do is essentially, with the garrison trap, you go about doing this. You go find yourself a couple scouts. Scout just about anybody you please. Obviously, if you want, you might even find some accounts and banks and such that you may want to wipe out. But if you want to have some free kills all along the way, then what you can do is basically get this account ready so that it's, hopefully what I would recommend doing is put it near the center of a hive, if you can. Or at least just in a position where you've got at least a good 7, maybe to 10 seconds to at least react. And then what you do is essentially, as the march is coming down on your alternate account or the garrison trap, you wait until you see the march, and then you essentially needed to figure out what gear does this player have on. And the second thing is, and this is most important, what are they sending? So in some cases, some players will be sending full mixed units, but you'll figure out what phalanx they're in, or perhaps you'll even figure out what gear types they have. A lot of the time, what I do as a tier 4 player is I will just put on whatever I can, and most cases, if it's an even mix, put in an even mix and the march for the garrison, and essentially, because the initial reaction of the player is going to think that, oh, well, his account's really small, weak, and, well, just frankly, it's going to be an easy march, that I'll just, let the march eat. Well, what you can do is you can actually play around with, as a tier 4 player, it's really easy, because if a tier 3 player hits tier 4 players' units, it's immediately going to die, especially if you've got war gear on. And so, it's an easy way to eat a couple marches, put your troops back in your base, rinse, repeat. Or if you're a tier 3 player, same could be said. If it's a tier 1 player, it's obviously going to be easy peasy. But if it's a tier 3 player, you got to focus more drastically on the gear. But essentially, all right, so we'll go ahead and get that started. But essentially, what you're going for here is that you're, by doing this strategy, you're basically getting it so that you can eat marches from your enemies. Now, the key warning here is that you can lose your leader doing this. It's very, 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 very important that you know who and why and how soon or how quick they're hitting you, because if it turns out that you send the wrong march in the garrison, you could just as easily lose everything. So it's a very vital, important thing to do is always make sure what are they sending in the march, and are you sending the right, proper counter to it? And, well, simply put, is your gear better than theirs? Are you in full military spec? Have you talent respec? Have you gone out of your way to make sure that you're in war gear? If you have not done any of those things, you probably should not be garrison trapping. And again, I say this because the garrison trap does not need to be in war gear. We are focusing primarily on the main account that is doing the garrison. Because the garrison account itself is ultimately what the stats are going to be based on, because the garrison is going to be the first thing that ends up getting hit. Now, if you also want to add on to this, if you're like a normal trap account, this also can be added on even further. You could put and reinforce the main account of the garrison trap, pretty much. Fill it up with reinforcements and maybe even have a fairly decent army sitting on the back, so that in the situation in which he does eat through the garrison, he will still lose the march inside the fort. The fort, yes. But essentially, by doing all of that, guys, that's essentially a really quick and easy, simple way to make a garrison trap. And again, if at all possible, always keep in mind that when you are being a garrison trap, you never want to reinforce with anything less than what you can send. So maxing out what you can send in terms of army attack, in terms of max army size, or anything of the sort will not hurt at all. It's very important that if you do in fact decide to eat a march from an enemy player, that they are not, and I say this very, very strictly, do not ever try to eat marches from players that you are not sure about. If you feel that that person may in fact actually win the march, they may in fact will. And believe me, losing your leader is the last thing you want to have happen. So be very mindful of this, and also when you do in fact decide to garrison a player, it is important to realize that when you do in fact send a garrison, what do you notice? I will get fury. So if you have troops to lose, do not ever do this. But if you don't, then it is no problem for you to garrison. I hope you guys enjoyed the video and found this somewhat useful, and I'll see you guys next time.